Hello, welcome back. I guess I welcome myself back after like a 2.5 month hidden hiatus that was not so hidden, but I just chose to cocoon. And I'll share a little bit more today. Beautiful, mystical muses. Welcome to the Phoenix Priestess podcast, your prayer portal, your permission portal to priestess your power, your presence, and your presence, your soul presence. Hmm. Where to begin? I feel like I have so much in my heart and in my mind right now. Hmm. So, first, I just want to open up with a prayer. Thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, ancestors, spirit guides. Thank you, sacred animals, our sacred families, children, our lineage, all that has come before us, all that is here now in service of our own sacred soul remembrance. May we remember that life is always working with us. Life is always wanting us to reawaken to our remembrance. And it is a living being, beating, like it's a living, it's a beating awake, alive remembrance. It's not something that we arrive at today or tomorrow or next week. It is eternal, this sacred remembrance. That is the rebirth revelation. It's not just one spring season or one moment or feeling like we are a priestess or a goddess or super connected or super wise, or it's really the weaving in and out of our daily divine and human selves, making peace with our past, making love to our present, understanding that we perfectly chose this divine sacred mission to incarnate in our holy bodies, and that everything that is here, not only inside of us or outside of us, can be looked at as a gift for us to unpack, to unravel, to come into a deeper relationship with, to become more intimate in our own understanding, in our own wisdom. Thank you, beautiful ones, for being here. So it's been a while, beloveds. In this time, I have had the birthdays of all of my beloved ones, my mother, my father, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my husband, my three children, and some other birthdays in between. And every year around this time, not only is it summer in the northern hemisphere, um, although I'm living right now, I don't know if Panama, good question, if I'm still considered northern. I think it is. And then Ecuador would be like the equator, southern hemisphere, if I'm not mistaken. So we're close to the southern, but not really, I think. Um, So every year, it's really, in a sense, a winter season for me. During summer, although I am feeling summer, parentheses, I am feeling very much summer in something that I'll be sharing with you all in a little while, in regards to my work. But in regards to my relationships, and each one is unique and different, of course, but I always have, I've noticed, spiritually speaking, it's really a closing of cycles all wrapped up into one. And normally there's one or two people in which I'm working or tending more of the energetic with each year. By the way, this year was with my mom and with my middle daughter. I don't feel like in this podcast I'm going to share because I just feel like there's so much I want to share today. But if it comes up, it comes up. But just know that in our relationships and in numerology and with birthdays, and for each person it can be different, but just really recognizing that we're always called to upgrade, to up level. That doesn't necessarily mean that you take out the person out of your life. You up level internally into your own inner sovereignty. You up level into your own inner guidance system. You up level into your own emotional, maternal, loving well towards yourself and many other things. So, and I was physically away. I was physically away for most of the summer from the home in which I'm living in. And I really noticed that I wanted to be present. I just felt like being present wherever I was. And I was also working, here you go. I was also working on my second book. I've been sharing this a little bit here and there on relaunching my first book and birthing my second book. I thought it was going to be three in one, but no. For now, it's one and two. We're doing one and two together. Um, I'll get to three when I get to three. Um, and um, and so I was really also trying to be present, traveling, taking care of my body, honoring my yeses and my nos, and also giving myself time to work if I felt like it. And that was about it. And so I haven't really been posting, or I even took my microphone with me on my last travels of a couple of weeks. And I did not feel like sitting down and sharing until now. So that's why I'm here today. Um, and I was just painting my fingernails a little while ago. And I started to hear my share with you all. And the phrase that came through were love lessons. So, what I will be sharing with you today are love lessons that life has taught me. And as I was painting my nails, I was thinking, my God, how important it is to really have enough space in our inner well, enough space in our mental body, enough space in our physical world, in our home, in our relationships, in order to feel our own intuitive ways. Because I was painting my fingernails. I'm like, why am I painting my fingernails? I thought I was going to paint my fingernails like at around 5 or 6 p.m. I was like, I never paint my fingernails at this time. And by the way, they're like chipped now, because the fingernail polish um, is, those like really thick ones that you just have to keep going. And so I kept going, but then I didn't, you know. But I realized by like the sixth fingernail, I realized, that was the vehicle for me to be able to hear the love lessons coming through. So, mystic medicine, little mystic medicine that we can remind ourselves is that when we do the dishes, when we bathe ourselves, when we go exercise, when we listen to healing music, when we stop, when we give to ourselves love, when we go outside and listen to the birds, when we take heed to that call, and I just heard it, paint your fingernails now. And without like judging or thinking, I just started painting him. And then my mind, of course, was like, if not resisting, just hearing the whole play out. So just remembering that we do resist, all of us. It doesn't matter where we are on our journey. Many times we don't listen, including myself. Many times we're like, I'll do it later. And if you know my poetry in my first book, a lot of it is about that inner struggle of your body is so accustomed to doing it a certain way, but your soul is calling out for this new way. And each and every time we have to say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to listen. I'm going to feel into that listening and I'm going to take action. So, with as much grace as we can when we don't take quote unquote action, but that we keep allowing ourselves to play in that realm, in that magical realm of following our intuitive ways and picking up those breadcrumbs and see where it leads us. That is where the true magic lies because we start to see the cosmos so connected. Like we literally start to see the elements, the animals, the people, the messages, like they all literally start to make this beautiful web of life that is beating inside of us, saying yes to whatever question, prayer, inquiry, desire we have internally. It really starts to come alive internally. So I'm glad I painted my fingernails at like, I don't even know what time it was. But I want to share with you the love lessons. So, number one, my love lessons that life taught me. Number one, and I just wrote them down as they started to come. How to love. How to love was probably my first, well, let's just say for this recording, this is what came through. I'm sure that after I record, I'm going to get like some more insights and maybe other ones. But for now, how to love. And that came through thanks to my first husband. He was the one that taught me at the very end of our marriage. He taught me where I had not been internally in my heart. He taught me how I had not been fully present in my giving. He taught me how to yearn and how to long for that love and how to feel that desire to be in that sacred union with someone. I remember, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I remember, and it's important because I had an experience in this trip. I remember one of the nights post our separation, and I was living in Panama, he in Ecuador. I in Panama, he in Ecuador. And I fell asleep and I was crying, but then I awoke at some moment and I awoke to La Virgen de Guadalupe, um, the Virgin of Guadalupe, I think is how you say it. I say her in English, like the Virgin Mary, who is depicted through Mexico mainly, but also through Latin America. And she's loved and adored through Latin and South America. But her story begins in Mexico. And I lived in Mexico and I had some encounters and experiences and gifts through her. So I've always had her near and dear as a mystic, as one of my guides. And so I hadn't really been, I normally allow the seasons to just be with my guides and to just welcome whoever is here to support me and to serve me to be rather than me like becking and calling and like, doing the deed to get something done, unless I'm like really, really desperate. Um, and 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 yes, in the last month, I've had a few days where I've felt internally like, how am I going to do this? How am I? And that's related to like, how am I going to fully be alive in my own expression in my work and serving my clients and how to be a mom and how to live my life. And I've been working through even deeper layers of that. Um, but the summary is that she came to me in a pilgrimage that I did this summer when I went to Avila, Spain, to visit the convent of Santa Teresa de Avila. If y'all want more details about that, I can share, or maybe I will share. Let me know. But the summary really is that I took a whole day to journey and to make an offering and to do my homework of a constellation that I did with one of my ancestors, the Archbishop Manuel Jose Mosquera, who is my archbishop, who in my lineage I had a soul contract that needed to be rewritten. And he has been one of my guides for many years. And in going into the convent, oh gosh, I'm totally veering and I'm okay with this. Okay. I feel like this podcast is going to be a long one. So pause, listen to this as you'd like. So when I arrive um, at the convent, I see this beautiful older man who's about to give a tour, and he invites me to take the tour with him, but he also says, or you can just do it on your own. And I said, well, actually, I really do want to just do it on my own. So then I go and I'm supposed to go pay. And so I go up and then I come back down and he's there with like the group who's beginning to come. And then I was like, okay, I'll just do it with him and then I'll just leave whenever I feel the call to. So I begin this group with them. Side note, I really only had about an hour before I needed to walk back. After having walked about 30 minutes, I needed to walk back another 30 minutes to the train station before my train departed back to Madrid. So I knew that I wanted space and time and silence. So within like 30 or 45 minutes of this beautiful man continuing to share about her life and share in a very Catholic way and using Catholic terminology, and all of the people who were there were super amazingly spoken in Catholicism. And I stayed. The summary is I stayed until the very end, until I was like, okay, I have to go. I have to go. Thank you so much. I have to go. And by then, I really only had like 5 or 10 minutes. So I went and I asked him, I said, where is her cell? And they literally called her room a celda because it was like super tiny. That's another convo for another moment. But so I go over there. I go to also the place where Saint John of the Cross, her dearly beloved mystic brother, um, would also see, ¿cómo se dice? Like hear the confessions or, sit with his Catholic peeps in the confessional. And then at the very end, right before I was gonna leave, I sat at the pew and I sat by and almost underneath this painting de la Virgen de Guadalupe, which was one of the oldest paintings. I think it's like the second oldest painting that exists, supposedly, of her. And I just sat there and I made a prayer. And I was so grateful because every time I sit in the prayer of the presence of her, there's just like this warmth and this trust. And it brought me back. It brought me back to that night with my first husband after we had separated, and I was crying and I was crying myself back to sleep. And I was awoken by her and just her love, and knowing that I wasn't alone and that I was being supported was literally the healing balm that I needed during that time. And so fast forward, I think it's been like 20 plus years, I'm sitting there. And I'd already had an experience about 2 weeks before at Notre Dame in Paris with her. I can't remember what they call it, but around Notre Dame, there's all of these little kind of prayer portals And so I sat at her prayer portal there and had an experience there. But here I just felt the warmth and the love. And I also knew my mind knew that I had to go. So I didn't have a couple of minutes. I didn't have a lot of minutes, but I just had to go. But it just felt good to have that silence. So I leave and I'm like walking back super, super fast. I get to this train station and what I thought was like perfect timing. And I go to get water and I realize that my wallet was not there. And I immediately just started bawling. And it was just like, oh God, like it wasn't really so much like a shaming myself, but it was just like I realized in that moment that I hadn't listened to myself, that I hadn't really trusted my own intuition that said, Jimena, just take your time there. Take your time in silence. You don't have to do the tour. You don't have to do it their way. You're not going to lose anything. You actually don't even need all of that information, that history information. That's not what you came for. I was even so shy because these were, like I was saying, these are people really learned in Catholicism. And they were talking about my background and where I came from. And I didn't even tell them that my archbishop was an archbishop in my own family lineage. Like he took it as like my lineage is from Panama. I didn't even tell him about my Colombian lineage and my own sacred mystical lineage. Didn't even tell anybody there about my own spiritual awakenings. And the real reason for me being there was to actually be in the house, in the convent, in the sacred ground of a sacred soul sister who was also a mystic, who also had spiritual awakenings. And that I just wanted to be there. I didn't need anything. I didn't need anybody to tell me anything, do anything for me. And so at the train station, I'm bawling and I'm bawling mainly because of that, because I hadn't listened to myself. And I also felt the grace of God and the grace of the Virgin, but not at that very moment. I also knew that I was going to be okay. So I call hubby and I'm like, okay, I'm going to lose that train. I'm going to try to find my wallet. I have no idea. At that moment, I had no idea where it was. So then my mind's like, oh shit, like as a mom with her family in another city, you're like, oh, my wallet, you're traveling overseas. You're like, oh, really? So all the way there, I'm crying. And when I arrive, it was closed because obviously siesta time. And so I stayed outside and I just sat in um her little what do you call it? Her what's it called? Not backyard, but in the Spanish and in the old Spanish homes, they had the inner like terraza. It's like an inner garden. And so there was this rectangle inner garden. There was this beautiful tree, and I just sat underneath it because it was like literally plus 100 degrees. So I'm like sitting there sweating, but underneath the shade. And I finally had received my silence. So I'm just sitting there crying, not knowing if I'm going to get my wallet, but knowing that I caught what I needed. So a little while after, about 30 minutes after, a priest comes. And I get the nerve to ask the sisters because I had already rung the doorbell, but I'm like, it's their downtime. So then I was feeling shame of like, oh, I'm gonna, interrupt them. Like, you should know better, Jimena. Like, that is their downtime. Like, get it together, like these are the hours that you can talk with them. And I hadn't even talked to anybody because they're the sisters who live there. They're real Carmelite sisters who literally that's their convent. That's still their daily convent. That's where they live. And so I do get to speak with someone, and they send me these two women to walk with me to where I had been. And so I'm like crying, crying, crying. And I walk into the church And I look at the pew, and of course, I had left it there right underneath the Virgen de Guadalupe. And so immediately I knew, because it's always the theme with her and with my life when she comes into my life for a specific teaching. Her and her beautiful robe that she has, that's like a halo around her. It is the reminder that we are being protected. It is that maternal, loving embrace that nothing that we can do is wrong or bad, and that we are being loved along the way. And so, of course, I bawled my eyes out and I sat there for a couple of, well, I can't remember if I sat or if I just stood there in front of her painting. And I just thanked her and I prayed. And I thanked the ladies. And on the way back, I think I cried most of the time on the way back, too. But it was that knowing that we are always being witnessed and watched and loved. With my first marriage, how it ended, this is like the external human context. How it ended was my ex husband no longer wanted to be with me, but in reality, he was with another woman, which he never confirmed. Um, he never confirmed that, but I knew he was, and I had heard it, and my dearly beloveds had seen it, and he ended up marrying her. So obviously, it was a yes. But that's like the human story. The divine story is that he really taught me how to love. I kept seeing him in my dreams years post our our separation and our divorce, and I kept getting messages. And so our soul, and the time that we think things happen, is not really how our soul works. Our soul really is miraculous. It's mysterious. It meanders. It takes you into different routes to make sure that you really touch upon all the lessons that love wants to teach you in your life, through your life. And so, my dear ones, regardless of who we feel is like the culprit or the villain in our story, or if there's a few of them, there is also a deeper dive that wants to happen within us. That is our soul contract. So the next, my mind's like, damn, like if I keep going this long with each one, I'll never end. Okay, the next one. The next love lesson came through thanks to my current husband. And it's how to stop blaming and love as is. So with him, it literally, I don't know if, well, we're coming up into 20 years. I have to do it like, I can't remember if we've already hit 20. I think we've already hit 20, 20. Well, we're around 20. Let's say that of being together. And for the longest time, since the very beginning, this is not something that I would obviously admit, but in my mind, I would hold back in being more loving, more connected, anything. I would still be in the resonance of blame. And so the reason for my not being happy, the reason for my not feeling loved, the reason for my not feeling appreciated, good, like just the list can go on and on, just anything that you think of, just put it on there. And it wasn't until I really came to terms with he and my daughter, my firstborn daughter, were like the last in the lineage of like blaming. Behind him was my dad. And then you can keep going. Um, but once I stopped blaming him, a lot of layers started to open up of remembering again how much I loved him, remembering again how I had chosen him and he had chosen me. And in my dreams with him, because most of the dreams I have with him are, I don't know if I've ever said this here, but I'm normally with someone else, or someone else comes towards me or wants me. And I always am saying, I have somebody waiting for me. So it's almost like the muse energy of knowing that people will come towards me, but knowing in this lifetime and in my own muse story that there's one man that I really chose in this lifetime to play this game with. And the more I the more I embraced who he really was, not what irked me, not what triggered me, not like the more I made peace with my past, all of those things that bothered me, that triggered me, that I could say that he was dot, 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 and he, and he, and he, and he, they really started to melt away. And so there's so many other lessons that I have received thanks to him. But for today, dear one, the invitation is to take note of who are we still blaming? Who are we allowing as priestesses? Who are we allowing to hold that power for us when that power is actually our own connection with source? I know that loving like the as is, loving the as is, as you incarnated, as we incarnated, as our children are, as our partners are, as our parents are, as how society is, as how our next door neighbor is that keeps doing dot, 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 like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The loving and the accepting of the as is one of the greatest rites of passage in which we are called to up level into. And more than an up leveling into, it's more of an of a coming into a an understanding that that is the nature of life for us to remember all of the particularities, all of the differences, all of the difficulties, all of the things that we think shouldn't be a certain way. One of the rites of passages is to really embrace that is as is and know that I am that I am. So the next one is mercy. How to have mercy. The next love lesson is how to have mercy. My parents were the ones who I would say have been my greatest teachers with that. And I'm going to read to you from Soul Satiation, my first book. This is more of like a definition. And the next one is, I'll explain in a minute. The first one, it's called Mercy Granted. A mercy massage, a heart invitation, a miracle maker reflecting recognition, forgiveness flower received. Even when it seemed unworthy by another, it is always granted. So mercy is the act of not only forgiveness, but it's the act of knowing that we all are flawed and that we will all continue to forget in one way or another our sacred remembrance. And that is part of being human. That is part of this sacred contract that we chose in being alive. And so mercy is the vehicle to actually bring us up to par with every single living being. If we can have mercy onto another when they have done wrong onto us without withholding love, without withholding compassion, without withholding forgiveness, without withholding contempt, and without withholding redemption. We can't have somebody redeem themselves with us if we keep holding on. And this is the other poem. It's called Tugging on Mercy. And that's that holding on that I'm speaking to. This is the skin, the glaze of not having mercy on another being this morning, yet begging to be the recipient of it. Release waiting to happen, but I tugging so hard I cannot feel its valve tapping, saying release rather than pull on me. So, this miraculous thing happens when we continue to practice having mercy with other people. The more we do the practice, the more we actually recognize how we can be compassionate and forgiving towards ourselves as well. And then you begin to grow in that model and receive other people's mercy as well. And you begin to see how you can redeem relationships, how you can transform relationships, how you can live out relationships in a completely different way. And that's really the summary with my parents without having to go deeply in it, is that mercy has continued to show me that heart invitation, that miracle maker. And I got to feel it. I got to feel it in this last trip twice with my uncle Andres and with my dad. So I visited with one of my dad's uncles, and my Colombian family is just the shit. They're amazing. They're beautiful. They've always just been the best. And his energy, Tio Andres's energy, is just the calmest, sweetest. Like he's literally like a Santa Claus. And he has Parkinson's now. And so there's like a slowing down, even more so. And people might think that there's a slowing down in his mind and what he can achieve and do. But if you tap into the resonance of his kindness and his love, it's just amazing. And after our lunch together with my cousins and with him and his wife in a beautiful little town, a beautiful little flamenco town, um, I just literally bawled on his shoulder. And I didn't say much, but I just bawled and hugged him and told him how much I loved him. Because that's what mercy does. Like it really opens your heart to where you have come from. It really makes you make peace with your past, but in an embodied sense. And with my dad, when we were saying bye, I've had a few instances, and I had a dream with him a couple of years ago that I needed to be in a deeper resonance with his heart. And that's a practice. That's a practice. I'm not going to lie. We all have our stories. But again, it is a miracle maker when we can do these souls rites of passages. And when I was hugging him, it almost went back in a timeline to the times where we have hugged in that way. And that hug erased all that we've done onto each other. Because as children, we can continue to say how our parents have wronged us. But when we become older inside of us or wiser inside of us as children, we recognize the places within which we still do that with our parents. We withhold, we judge, we shame, and we either do it with them or with our children or with someone else until we can neutralize that contract and really check the box of lesson learned. And so when we were hugging and we were both crying, there was not much to say. We were just so grateful, both of us, to have seen each other. I was so grateful to see him in his new home, loving being out in nature, in his backyard with his plants. And then also, I happy and at peace with being myself as I am, as well as part of my lineage. That was one of the greatest gifts that I gave to myself this summer, was going even into deeper healing with my lineage. And I could say, in order to prepare myself for my next stage of work, sure. But in truth, that's my sacred contract with myself. And truly, we have to ask ourselves that famous, what's his name? Oh gosh, I forgot. The Mac guy. And it's not Bill Gates, but it keeps going Bill Gates. It's not. But I remember when I met my husband, he had in his mirror, he had, if this was your last day, would you do what you're about to do? Steve Jobs, maybe. I don't know. Um, so I invite us to take a minute and just ask if there's anyone we still have unfinished business with, in which we need to send ourselves, literally, like write ourselves a mercy invitation, like write it out in a card, mail it to yourself, put it by your bed, ask that mercy tug at your heart and show you how to practice it in day to day life with those around you. Oh my gosh, I'm tuning into. Should I keep going? Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna. The next love lesson. Actually, I feel like my body is actually wanting to end there. There are some more love lessons, and I'll feel into if that's the next podcast or not. If you want to hear them, then let me know. Write it. I'd love to hear. Um, I love to be prompted and asked. And if it's in the cards, the yes for me, then I will most certainly do it. So these life love lessons that we all have in our own ways of how to how to grow forgiveness in our hearts, how to expand in mercy, how to practice grace, how to have compassion, how to release contempt and judgment, how to embrace shame. All of these topics that tend to pull at the chords of disconnection within our heart. I'm actually going to be offering a special something, and I want to hear if this is something that you all would like. When I launch my first and second books again, I really saw myself supporting whoever buys those books on this journey, supporting them on this soul journey for 61 days. So basically, I'm asking you to let me know if this is something that would be useful in your life. I know that for me, it has been. For me, the ability to receive poetry, to hear it, to write it, and then to read it and to reread it, because I do use my own poetry. Like it came to me, yes, to share with others, but first and foremost, it comes to me for me to embody it layer by layer, piece by piece, by everlasting piece. Each strand is sewn back into my soul contract. And so I want to support you, dear mystical being, in really unveiling, like unearthing those beautiful sacred messages that come through with poetry and how to allow your own life to gift you those love lessons. Because the biggest gift is to remember how beautiful this life really is, how beautiful your life really is, how beautiful you incarnating into your own being, how beautiful that really is. How beautiful you chose the most perfect family to learn those love lessons. So you could learn those love lessons. And for you to remember that as you bring into harmony all of those pieces, it's like a mandala that starts to appear. Your soul gifts, your karmic lessons, and then how to put that in the practice in the daily. What does that look like? I love supporting my mystic mamas in the mundane because, like, I just went to the convent of Santa Teresa de Avila. One of the remembrances was, oh, thank you, God. Thank you, God. I did not incarnate back then, and I am incarnate now because I am not a nun. I am a mystic, but I'm not a nun. I am a hermit on a hill. I am a mystic on a mountain. I am a mother in my home. I am a wife to my beloved, but I'm not a nun. I thought it was beautiful, their commitment, their devotion. But like the cloaks, the cloaks, like some of you all know me really well, and being naked and being in the ocean, being in the sand and having freedom, like the freedom to be in relationship with the elements, that's priceless. That is priceless. I love how Santa Teresa Avila, she knew back in her day, sisters, they took off their shoes. She was like, we're going to take off our shoes and we are descalzas because hell yeah, grounding is a thing. And now the Carmelites actually wear shoes again. But back in her era, she was like, shoes off, bitch. Or probably not bitch. Obviously not. But I came back from that experience really grateful to be in my own body, really at peace, really turned on by my life and how I am choosing to live it. Really grateful. Thank you, beautiful muses, for inspiring me in various ways. If you would like to stay tuned, just stay tuned to hear the next steps of my books and the offerings that will come with my books and how I can support you during this special season in your life. If there's any of these that resonate, or if there's any love lesson that you know you've learned or life is teaching you, I'd love to hear. Share it with us in the comments. Or share it with me personally if you feel a little shy of sharing in the comments. Or share it with the Virgen de Guadalupe. Guadalupe. Trust that whatever is happening in our life at this moment, or whatever has happened in our life, is here in support of us, lighting more love into our hearts, and relighting our aliveness in our bodies, in our beautiful human bodies, in our beautiful human divine bodies. Amen. Have a beautiful, beautiful, blessed day.